Right, we are almost near Christmas, and you see that we have a lot of Christmas trees here. And you must be wondering what I'm going to do with them. I'm going to work on a couple of them. First of all, these are almost 1 meter tall. And most people wonder, how can I deal with a tree that big? And I'll show you what I do with it. But let me talk about some other pioneers as well while I'm out here. Now, these are the big ones which are 1 meter tall. But we have a very popular line. And by the way, you can see what I've been doing. I've been cutting the tops off. And in case when you order it and you get one that has the top cut off, don't despair, because 1 meter is much too tall for a bonsai. I will show you how to reduce the height so that you get a more manageable tree. Now these ones are about 30 to, I would say, 40 centimeter tall. And you will see that I have a batch of 45 trees that I picked out. And I must tell you about this very interesting project that I've got. The Museum of Modern Art in Helsinki are going to give their staff, I think 40 or 50 of them, a Christmas treat. And I'm going to do a Zoom conference where all their staff are going to get a tree each and the right amount of wires and a pot, and they're going to follow me on the Zoom conference, and they're going to make a Christmas tree each, Christmas tree bonsai with a spruce for Christmas. So that's going to be an exciting project. So these trees that I've picked out are going to be shipped to Helsinki in Finland. But let me now go to the back of the greenhouse, because I'm going to show you how I'm going to deal with these tall 1 meter trees. As I told you, I've already cut some of them. This one is not cut yet, so we'll go to the back greenhouse and I will show you how exactly we deal with these trees. So as you can see, it's getting cold, so I'm not wearing my Hawaiian shirt today. So what am I going to do? I'm going to work on this 1 meter tall picea, because as I said to you, it's much too tall to be a bonsai. You would need a massive pot. You could use the whole height, but I prefer not to use the whole height. So always with these trees, the first thing to do, by now you must have guessed, is to take it out of the pot, and let's spread the roots to find good radial roots, and that will also help me decide which is the front and which is the back. Amazing how they can get these plants in these small pots. They must be grown very intensively. And there you go. If you take a close look at the trunk, it's a massive trunk there. And I'm now going to, for good measure, scrape some of the soil. And this reveals the very, very powerful base I have. So the first thing I do is to, maybe if the tree is going to start there, I don't need the branches that low. By the time I wire them down, I think I can safely remove some of these very low branches. I know getting these low branches is quite a difficult thing because it takes years to grow, but they serve the purpose. These low branches have helped to thicken the trunk, so they have acted as a sacrificial. So if there's a word you've learned, hopefully this year, is sacrificial. So we can start the tree from about here, a low spreading branch. That one at the back we probably won't need. So looking at that beautiful trunk, you can straight away see that very powerful tree. I know I've done this video before, but just to reinforce your learning process, I'm doing it again. I don't think there's any harm in repeating myself. Okay, now let me decide how far I go. But before I do that, I might as well wire some of these branches. Now this trunk would be every bit, I would say, 2 inches. 2 inches in new money is 5 centimeter is an inch, 2.54 to 5. No, what am I saying? Okay, this and this. Now, if I use this as the front, what I'm looking for in a new leader is one shoot that goes up like this. So that is a possible leader. If I don't want the tree to be that tall, I can stop it here. Or that's another place I can stop it. I could stop it there. So let's get rid of this label. Well, certainly I don't need all of it, that's for sure. I don't need all of it. So the first option is I could make a chop here. I could make the tree that tall, but it's still too tall. If I go further down, you see what I mean by getting a new leader. That will take over as the main leader. That's shooting upwards. Where's the next place I can cut? I can cut there. That can also make a leader there. So I could do that one. So you have so many choices. So let us be a bit radical and take this off. Okay, I'm going to reduce the tree by this much. In fact, I'm going to, in future, send the trees much shorter because many people struggle to make a decision as to where to cut it. So rather than let them struggle, I think I will take the pain out of the decision-making process. So this is what I've cut off, this much. I've cut off at least, I would say, 30 centimeter. That much I've taken off the top. So that is a more manageable height for the tree. So I hope you can see the way I'm thinking. Now let's do the first wiring. And here's my little robin. It's become a permanent visitor. And it loves to see me whenever I work. So this wire that I'm using, let me just double check. This wire is 3.5 mil wire. 3.5 mil wire because the branches are quite thick. So this is what I'm using to wire the first pair of branches. With Christmas coming, you'll find that there are lots of these trees available. Make sure that when you buy these trees, they are quite fresh and not dried up, because many of these trees, because Christmas is such a busy time, in many of these stores, they store it in a dry place, and they know that people who buy it, they keep it for Christmas, and after Christmas, they chuck it out for the garbage man to take away. But if you want to grow it, you've got a beautiful bonsai. So be careful when you buy these trees from the stores. Make sure that they're not dried up. And as you know, at Christmas, the robin is the archetypal image of Christmas, the robin at Christmas. So how appropriate is this, with this little robin looking at us making a Christmas tree? And I hope you will feel the Christmas spirit with the little robin here. They're looking for little worms and little grubs. And this is wide. I'm not going to cut it off. I'm just going to shorten it a little bit. And I'm going to make that the first pad. So that is going to require only slightly thinner wire. So the first pad, I will use, I think I'll use 2.5 millimeter wire. I hope me telling you what grade of wire I use will give you a rough guide and help as to what to use. But as I've always said, you've got to play it by ear, and you've got to assess the situation for yourself, because the age of the trunk or the branch plays a big part in deciding what wire to use. If it's an old branch, it won't bend so easily, so you may need slightly thicker wire. So there is never a rule of thumb I hate rules. There's no rule of thumb that says that you've got to use that grade of wire if it's a certain thickness of branch. Okay, so I'm now just going to trim the ends. Trimming the ends won't hurt it, it will make it bush more. I'm always trying to reveal the trunk as much as possible, so that's going to be the back branch. And then I want to arrange the next branch so that it's not too low and clouding the back. So some of these thinner branches are going to go, because I'm going to use most of the branches this thickness. So I'm going to pair that one and one at the back there. I will pair those two, and then this can come out. So I keep pairing them and wiring as I go along. I haven't looked at the top yet. I'm not bothering to look at the top just yet. I'm taking the wire around the trunk once because that gives the branch more stability for wiring. And you notice that I'm not bothered if the wire doesn't go right to the very end of the branch. It's just to keep the branch down. You can take it to the end if you wish, but I'm trying to save on just a bit of wire. If you don't have the gin pliers, an ordinary pair of electrician's pliers would do, but the pliers does help you to tweak the end. And when you come to the end, we will shorten these a bit. They will certainly grow again. Look at that cheeky little robin. Already looking like a tree. So I'm trying to leave spaces between branches, as I said to you. So I'm taking out the thinner ones. Let me see, if I put that there, will it affect it? No, that's quite nice. That should be okay. This could be okay like that. But I think this is better like that. It's too close, so I don't need this one. This one will do the job, so I can get rid of this one. So it's always a method of elimination. So this one is too close to this one, so I take this one off. I hope you get the idea. So let's concentrate on wiring these two first, and then we'll take the next one. Now that one is there. Do I need that? No, I don't need this even. So let's get rid of this. So we can wire these two. I can wire these two. No, let's wire these two. Let's wire these two. If the bird understands English, it can probably understand the instructions, what I'm doing. So let me just do this one. I don't think there are many people who actually use this species of tree for bonsai. Very few, I would say. Certainly in the UK, I don't think anyone uses this. You may get the odd person who uses it after seeing what I've done, but it's not a tree that people normally use for bonsai. So we've got so far, so you can see the way the tree is coming along. So now we resume by taking more decisions about the further branches. Let me just put a marker here in case I forget which is the front and which is the back. The roots are quite good. Now I've got to decide what to do here. If we see here, now if there's a decision whether I keep this branch or not. This branch is too close to this one. Even when I bend it down low, you can see that it's too close. It doesn't leave enough gap between this and the next one. So if I don't need it, I take it off. I know that many of you will find it very daunting and frightening to decide what to take off and what to keep. Now these, I will see, they can go to the back, but because they go to the back, it's not interfering with the space. I can use these two. So these two, although they are close, I can use these two, but I see another branch there. So let me see what if I do that one. Okay, now that means I've got 3 branches. If you look at it, I've got 3 branches. I've got this, this, and that. Now that could be too much. So what do I do? Given the choice of having these 3, I feel that it's a bit much. So do I remove this one or remove this one? I think you could easily remove the center one and keep it like that. Maybe, because if I keep just these two and remove this, there's too much gap there. So this is what goes through my mind. So I'm just revealing how I think as I go along. So with these 3, because if I remove this one, I get more spacing. This is my preferred choice. If I remove this one, these 2 are too close. So I will prefer to do, as I say, keep these 2 and remove the center one. So I will do the safe thing and wire those 2 first. In case I get it wrong, I can always have a fallback position. So if you're not sure, you can just do as I'm doing. Keep the option open in case you need to go back to that. So I have 2 volunteers here, so we're going to do another interesting project after this one, where we are going to make several piceas and put them together in a Christmas scene. So it's going to be like a Christmas tree landscape. You'll find that very interesting. I always return to the front because that's where I'm going to see it. So that is my marker. So if that is the front, now let me arrange those branches there. That can go that side. And I think there is a case for keeping that there. So I won't remove it just yet. I will keep it. I'm glad I didn't remove it. And then the next 2, I've got to decide which is the next 2. That is a useful space there. This is useful. I think we'll keep these 2. Okay. Always try, do like this, and then try and see if it works. So I thought it would work. So I've now gone down 1 grade lower. This is just 3 mil wire instead of 3.5. As you go higher up the trunk, you see the thickness of the branches has reduced, so I don't need such thick wire. So you've always got to match the thickness of the branch you're wiring with the right grade of wire. If it is too thin, it won't work, it won't hold. If it's too thick, it would be very cumbersome to use, and it could also hurt the branch. So as I'm going up, I'm going to trim the long branches, the tips, so that I get more of a conical shape. So already you can see the shape of that tree, and although I've removed about 30 centimeters of the top, or even more, I've now got a shorter tree. So you don't have to use the entire top. We will deal with the apex when we get there. Now what about this one? Is that too much? I will decide in a moment. The less is more principle can be quite intimidating, because like all filming, you must be thinking, if I cut it, it becomes irrevocable. You can't go back. So like here, there's quite a lot there. So there's 3 there, so I can safely remove this one. So try it in position. Now this one is still bothering me. Do I keep it or not? See, with that there, I don't think I need it. Now that this is down here, I can more or less see that I don't need this one. So let's take this one off. So it's still looking good. As we proceed, so it is like literally a method of elimination. I'm keeping the front fairly open, trying not to have a branch poking you in the eye. I like that expression because you don't want to be poked in the eye, certainly. So now this and this could go there. Would it go there? So there are again 3 branches. I probably don't need all of them. This is too close to that, so I'll remove the center one. I know some people criticize me for working too fast, but it's because I have taken the right decision. I don't expect everyone to be able to decide as quickly as I do, but it's not a problem. You can take as long as you like. And in case I'm giving the impression that I'm having a race, I'm not having a race. For the sake of the video, I can't spend 2-3 hours doing this, because you learn the same principles in the time that I take to do the tree. But it's a good thing to go through the thought process of analyzing whether you need it or not. It is analysis. Every time you look at a problem, you're analyzing the problem, asking yourself, do you need this? Do you need that? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? There are logical processes involved in making bonsai. Okay, now there is a space there. I need to fill a space there. This one is coming straight out at me. Do I need it? Probably not. Let me try the next branch. So the next branch, you notice what I'm doing is I'm not visualizing the entire tree. I'm proceeding as I go along. As I go along, I take the decision. I don't try to look too far ahead. I don't think it is necessary to do that. Now that would go there. This can go here. Okay, now this seems to be close. If I bring this down, this may be better. Can you see? If I brought this down and this down, this may be too close to that. So if I brought this down, this may be better. So let's get rid of this one. So it's only by trying the position that you get to get a feel for whether it is appropriate or not. There is no right or wrong, it's just whether it's appropriate or not. You can always rectify it even if you make a mistake. Okay, that can go there, so that would fill the space. This can go this side. So I think let's work on these 2 first. Again, using thinner wires. I'm using the 2mm wire. I reckon with this tree I'm removing about, I would say, 45%, maybe 50% of the existing branches. That's the amount of branches I'm removing. Mind you, this is a very healthy tree. All these are very healthy trees with lots of branches. And because you have so many branches, you have the choice of taking out what you don't feel is necessary for the design. So This again reinforces the view that you don't need to have every tree being made into an S shape. In case I give the impression that all I like is the S shape, not so. I have some very, very good personal trees that are what we call formal upright trees. They are absolutely bolt upright, and they are absolutely exquisite trees. Okay, so that is okay there. I think this may be all right. Let me just wire these two. I'll wire it and see if it fits, if it works or not. Now I'm going even lower now. I'm going down to 2 mil wire. I had another comment to one of our videos saying that, oh, I would like to see this tree in a year's time. And I think the tone of the remark was such that I bet in a year's time it will be rubbish. I can only reinforce the fact that if you keep it a year, it'll look even better. Except that most of these trees that I make, people beg me to sell them to them. The two that I made earlier in the year, I had about 6 people wanting to buy it. They have been sold. Sometimes they bring them back for me to tweak and improve. Okay, so the cone is gradually tapering to a point, and this is what I want to do. You can sometimes bring a branch which comes out towards you, not exactly straight at your eye, but slightly to the slant like that. Because there are so many branches on this type of tree, the decision making is not difficult. If you had very few branches, that restricts your choice, restricts the options, and that makes it difficult. So where you have a situation where there are lots of branches to choose from, it makes the problem solving that much easier. So that's why I love these trees. So easy, especially for beginners. This is one of the best trees, I think, for beginners. So I'm just carrying on wiring as I go along. As I reach the top, at some point I'm going to have to decide how I finish the top. There's still a lot of branches here. Lots of branches I don't need. Don't need those. This is still the front. I keep coming back to the front because that reminds me where the front of the tree is. Okay. Okay, can you still use that back one? This is the scary part. If I take too much off, I may have to just gin the branch. No, I don't think so. I can still carry on. This can still come there. This is still too close. I can still remove some stuff. I'm almost there. Almost there. I think just 3 more pairs of branches and I'm finished. I think that can also go. That can also go. So for those of you who are buying a tall tree like this, you will know that you don't have to use the full 1 meter height. You can cut it down by at least 30 centimeters, because this tree is now just slightly over 60 centimeter, and it is perfectly adequate. Don't need more than that. This is the front still. I keep looking at the front. And the last pair is the apex going to the top. And the little side branch there. And then you can wire some of these very thin ones with very thin wire, like 1 mil. And let us see. I can certainly use much, much thinner wire. Or even 0.8 mil. I'm not going to do every single twig. So, there you go, that's your Christmas tree. Instead of the original 1 meter, let me find that. This is what I took off. It was that high. And I've taken it down to there. And that is your tree. And I'm going to put it in a pot, and the final shot will be this in its pot. So I hope you've learnt from repeating this exercise, and now we're going to work on some more piceas to make into a Christmas group, which will be another video. So this is the big picea that I've been working on, and as you can see again, my resident robin is always here, and I'm glad I put that bit of mesh there. See what the robin is doing. It's pecking all the moss. I put the moss there only 5 minutes ago, and I covered with mesh here so that the robin doesn't steal the moss. And although the robin is very friendly, it does things that are not what I would like to see happen. So it's pecking the moss, and poor robin, I think, is looking for worms, but there is such a lot of worms and debris in the nursery. I don't know why it doesn't go elsewhere to find the worms. So this is our picea, which was done very rapidly, and it's been potted in this mica pot. Let me remove the mesh, and I've shown some of the exposed root, and this is how I finished it off. And there you are. No longer just a Christmas tree, but a stately, formal, upright tree. I will try and keep this, as I've always said to people who ask questions on the YouTube comments. I'd like to see the tree in a year's time, but you won't believe, most people hanker after the trees I make, so I seldom manage to keep them for very long. But I can assure you that in a year's time, it will look even better. It will look even better. The pads will have developed much more. So this is how this tree has turned out. And I will put the mesh back so that the robin will not be tempted to dig up the moss. That's a little idea for you. Put mesh like this and cover it up. And you can tie it down, because you never know, the robin may yank that mesh off and get at the moss. So there you go. I'm now going to show you how we put the lime sulfur on the driftwood. This is just going to be a very short video because this is just the actual technique of applying the lime sulfur and cleaning the trunks. Most of the driftwood on bonsai are usually done on junipers, yews, most of the trees that don't exude a sap. You don't often find a lot of white driftwood on pines because when pines are stripped of their bark, they give out a resin which makes it a bit difficult to apply the lime sulfur. So we've got a couple of very nice junipers here. I'll just walk through it. This particular tree belongs to a customer. It's been here for quite a few months. In fact, it's been here for almost 9 months. Because of the lockdown, we couldn't return it to the customer. And it comes here once every 5 years or so for servicing. Servicing means that we take all the wires off, maybe rewire the trees. We spent about maybe 1 week taking off every single piece of wire from the twigs and branches. And we've got to now clean the wood and then apply the lime sulfur. I'm just going to show you some other trees that we have here. We have quite a few trees. This is one of my own trees. This is a yew. This has been carved, so this has got to be cleaned as well. This one I didn't show on the video, but I did some carving myself. This is a yew that we grow in our field, and it's in the process of being made. I'm not in a rush to lime sulfur that because I'm in the process of carving that. There are some other trees here that have been tidied up, and my colleague here, Steve, has been tidying it. So he's cleaned the bark. I will show you how the bark is cleaned, and this tree is going to be put in one of these mica pots so you can see the extensive driftwood. We've taken the wires off because they were biting quite heavily into the branches, but we're going to rewire it. So this is going to possibly go in one of these drum pots. This is a very famous juniper of mine. This has been cleaned, the bark has been cleaned, and we've put very subtle lime sulfur so that it's not too bright and white. Now I would like to show you this tree, which is a really, really major tree. This again is a customer's tree, and look at the size of this. I must have imported this tree possibly 2005 or 6, maybe even earlier, but around that time. So it's been in this country about 15 years, and it was sold to this very good customer of mine about possibly 10 years ago. And again, they come here every now and then for servicing, what I call servicing. So it's got extensive driftwood. I would say this is probably carved, but it's a really stunning juniper. Look at the size of it. Look at the size of this tree. And look at this beautiful red bark of the juniper. This has been cleaned, and you may have seen on some of my earlier videos where I show you how to clean the bark. We stripped the old bark off because junipers and yews, all the cupressus family, they shed the bark as the tree grows and expands. So this is the bark that has come off, and then once it's come off, we then use a brush to get it nice and bright and red. We've got to clean some more, and I may possibly do just a little bit of wiring to support it. So this tree is in very good health, and look at it. I estimate this tree to be well over 100 years old. I don't think it is quite 200, but possibly between 100 and 130 or 40. But it's some juniper, some size of juniper, almost possibly made from a garden tree. But this one is spectacular. I remember seeing this in Japan. I will try and find a photograph of me with this tree when I saw it in a Japanese nursery. But this is also a very spectacular tree with this beautiful, beautiful driftwood. And needless to say, this is a very expensive tree. Not everyone can afford trees like this. I can't even tell you the price because this is a very private thing between the customer and me. But believe you me, it is an expensive tree. So I'm going to do a bit of videoing as Steve cleans the bark, and we'll show you how it is done. We begin by wetting the surface. So we use this little spray and we wet it with this spray of water, and using the nylon brush we clean the bark off. There's a lot of algae and dust and grime on the bark, so we do that first. Have you removed any of the flaky bark yet? No.
No, there wasn't a lot on here.
Okay, but we may do just a bit. Okay, so I wouldn't try and use a pressure washer, although there is a case for using a pressure washer, I suppose. But I think this is more gentle. Beautiful live vein on this tree. This tree came from western Saitama, from the Suchiya mountains. I will dig up the photograph because I distinctly remember seeing it, and I fell in love with this tree from the very first sight. Now Steve is using a little carving tool like a chisel, and he's just trying to scrape off the flaky bark. You could use a kitchen knife or a pen knife, whatever suits you. We've got to be careful not to take too much of the bark off because you could kill the live cambium. You see the live vein over here. The red is the live, the white part is the dead wood. Okay, there's quite a lot to do. I'll leave Steve to do some more, and then when all that is exposed, I will film it again. And juniper wood is very, very hard. And of course the old lime sulfur, this becomes like mud or dust, and that has to be cleaned out too. So I'll leave Steve to do some more, and I will come back and film this again. It's still what you call virgin. That means you haven't done anything to it. You see the algae which has grown on the trunk, that has all got to be washed off, brushed off and cleaned, and this is what will take a few minutes to do. So here we are after another 15 or so minutes, and you can see how the bark is coming nice and red, and that's what we're doing. We're just brushing off the algae on the branches. You see they're all green, and we find that just spraying it with a little bit of water and then brushing it gets it clean. So we've got to do the whole trunk like that. This is the other side. This has been done, this has been done. So it's literally like washing it, in fact. This is a spectacular tree. This sort of thing only the Japanese and the Taiwanese can make. So this is the first stage, washing the live veins and also cleaning the dead wood. And when that is thoroughly washed, we will then apply the lime sulfur. So this is the general principle. And if there are any loose bits of bark, we will take it off with the penknife. So this is that large juniper, and this is how we are applying the lime sulfur. We're applying it on the dead wood. We've washed the dead wood so that all the algae has come off. So it's just plain, clean, dead wood. And now we're applying the lime sulfur. Parts of it have already been done, so you can clearly see the veins. This is one big tree, very large tree, look at it. Some bonsai. This is a tree belonging to one of our valued customers. And this one is his as well. These are our trees. And this is a yew in the making. And you turn the tree around. So have you applied on the other side? So this has been applied, but it hasn't turned fully white. It will turn white. So I'll give it another few hours, maybe like 6 or 8 hours, and then film again to show it complete with everything white. So this is yet another day, and we are continuing to clean up all our junipers. That means clean the gins and sharis. So this is work that my colleague Steve has been doing. You can see the tools, all these wire brushes, chisels, and what he's done, he has been spraying the wood. He's got to wash the wood off first, and then after it's washed, it is scrubbed, and all these bits of bark are peeled off. So this is what he has done. Unfortunately, this is not a 10-minute job. Just to do this tree alone takes a couple of hours. And in case any of you think that this is a tanuki, it certainly isn't. And this tree is very cleverly done. You look at this branch here. This branch has been split from here. See this bit, this branch was attached to this portion. It's been split, wrenched back and made into a branch. So very clever things have been done, but this is certainly not a wraparound. Whenever people see these trees with beautiful driftwood, their first impression is that it is a wraparound. Like this big tree I was showing earlier on, I'm self-videoing by the way, and you look at all this lovely driftwood. This is certainly not a wraparound. This is all genuine stuff, and it's been carved. And if you turn the tree around, if I'm able to do it, you see, no way is this a wraparound. This is all genuine. But when you see it from this side, you see all that driftwood, you think that just the tree's been placed behind it. You can see why it isn't. It is a genuine tree. It's got to be rewired again, but since it's a customer's tree, it depends how much he's prepared to shell out to do all the work. There's a lot of work. There's another week's work to rewire the whole tree. But this is what servicing these trees involve. Very, very massive tree. This tree is every bit 4.5 foot tall, 1.2, maybe 1.4 meters tall. This is one of my own trees, and this one has been tidied up, and these are the smaller ones. When we say smaller, it's not that small. They're about easily 25-30 centimeter tall, and these trees must be at least 15 years old, maybe more, 15 to 20 years old. So these big trees are all in excess of 100 years old. And looking around us, you can see what a lot of material we have. This one has been done. That's another major tree. By the way, this first aid box is not for first aid. It's my own toolbox. This is where I keep my tools. But I think a first aid box is useful because you never know when you cut your finger. It's not often that it happens. This year I've only cut my finger once, which is par for the course. So this one, you can see My colleague Steve hasn't brushed it yet. He's still got to brush it to reveal the pink on it, and we're going to pot this tree up in a new pot. So we're in the process of putting lime sulfur on most of our junipers, so we're going through them one by one. You can see how we've washed them. We've washed the old algae off the white driftwood. That's the first bit, and then we remove some of the bark just to reinforce what we do, and then the lime sulfur is put, and then there's another big one there. If you can have a look, that one has been washed, and we're now ready to apply the lime sulfur. So I will now show you how it's going to be done. So we apply it neat with a wet paintbrush. This is a 3/4 inch brush. You can use a small painting brush as well. And it's just applied on the wood. For the first 6 to 12 hours, the liquid stays yellow, and then after that, it suddenly turns white. As I said in some earlier videos, many people try to make lime sulfur with their own concocted formulas, slaked lime and all that, but it's never the same. This lime sulfur is the proper lime sulfur, which has been used a lot, I would say, since the post-war years, right up to the mid-1980s, when it was used for spraying fruit trees. And I remember there was a brand called Murphy's lime sulfur. You could buy it in little 1 liter can. So that's how it's applied, and I will show you when it dries out. Meanwhile, I'll go to some other trees again to reinforce the learning. See, this one has got bits of shari. We applied that. We have to probably remove off some of these which accidentally fell on the live wood. So yeah, that drops off here. So this is how all these are being done. So this video is all about putting lime sulfur on driftwood, gins and sharis. I will do a separate talk on gins and sharis with a little demo, because I did one 2 weeks ago for 50 Indian bonsai societies on a Zoom meeting, but I will do this as a YouTube video, how to make gins and sharis on both small and large trees. So there's going to be one more shot after all these have been lime sulfured. We can show you the finished product, but already they're looking quite good. Let me show you the end result of all the cleaning of the sharis and gins that we've done over the last 2 or 3 weeks. This is a very large juniper that belongs to our customer, and this is the detail of some of the shari, that means the driftwood in the trunk. This is not a tanuki, in case anyone thinks it's a false tree. It isn't by any means. And I haven't rewired the tree. I just want to leave it free like this, because this customer doesn't like trees wired. So I'm just going to let it grow natural. It looks very clean and tidy, so this is quite okay. Now the other tree that he owns is this great big monster. This is every bit, I would say, 4.5 to 5 foot tall. And this again is a genuine tree on its own trunk. It's not a tanuki, but look at all that beautiful driftwood. This was a specimen I imported from Japan in 2005, and he bought it about maybe 10 years ago. And again, I've taken all the wires off. It took me almost 2 months to de-wire the tree. You can see some of the wire marks. I've taken every single wire off, and I'm just going to leave it like that. This is the back. We have a lot of trees with jins and sharis. So let me move on to another one. We've been doing these jins and sharis because we were on television, the BBC One channel, for one of their programs, and that program will be aired in February, I think, January or February. So we took the opportunity of cleaning up all these trees of ours. So they look smart and neat. And as I said, usually with pines, because the bark is so stunning and craggy and old, it seems wrong somehow to do jins and sharis on pines. So I don't often do anything to the pines. This is another tree that we have cleaned up, and we put it in a temporary pot. I'm going to repot that again in the spring, but I put it in that pot mainly to do the television program. So it's got some beautiful natural jins here, and the shari has been cleaned up. So that's that one. And this is a very favorite tree of mine. This was wired 2 years ago, and it was loaned to a display at the Chelsea Flower Show of 2019. An award-winning garden by one of the famous designers. They borrowed this tree just to display on their stand. As a contrast, these are Japanese larches. These are trees that we don't do jins and sharis. So all around the nursery you will find lots of junipers that have jins and sharis. I must show you 2 more trees that have got beautiful jins and sharis. In fact, I can show you more. We have such a lot of examples. Now, talking of pines, now this particular Scots pine is a massive one, beautiful literati style. There are some natural jins on it, so that doesn't look out of place. It's a very subtle jin, but it fits the design of that tree. Now let me just move on to a couple more specimens. There is this famous Sabina juniper, which is in this large Japanese crescent pot. This is a favorite tree of mine. It is one of the most stunning sculpture type trees that I have, and it's potted in this because I couldn't reduce the roots to fit a pot, so it has to be sat in this sloping fashion because this is the correct angle for the tree. This is another Chinese juniper that I've had for years and years. I think it is an Itoigawa, and again, it's not a tanuki. It's a genuine tree on its own trunk and bark. No tanuki about that one. And there are just another couple. This is an Itoigawa here. I haven't cleaned the jins and sharis on this one. I like a lot of the trees looking natural. I don't like to make them too artificial. And that's in a very nice sculptural pot. This is a Sabina juniper. I haven't cleaned the bark, and I haven't lime sulfured the driftwood because I like it looking natural. And you can see why I like it looking natural. Sometimes if a tree is too white, it looks very artificial. This is natural driftwood that I found. We do some flower arranging, and we use this for flower arranging. And now this is a mighty Scots pine, yes, and it's got a hint of jins there. It doesn't look odd, so I will leave it there. So if jins are very subtle on pines, they look fine. Now this is an Itoigawa that we've cleaned up, and again very subtle jins on that one. It's a beautiful tree that we have. That's a Itoigawa again, and the shari on that tree has been cleaned up. So there you go. If I were to look around more, there is more. That Scots pine has got a bit of gin there, and that looks natural, because if I were to remove it, you could remove it, but that gin doesn't look out of place, so I'll leave it there. It's not overdone, so it looks very natural. So again, with gins and sharis, they need to look natural. If they don't look natural, then there is no point. So on that note, I will end this video, little video about gins and sharis. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Now this is another maple. These green maples are what we call the mountain maples, Yama Momiji, straight Acer palmatum. It's got beautiful trunk line, and these were probably imported as bonsai this size. They were no bigger than this. It's grown twice the size in the last 20 years, and we are growing them to change the shape of the tree, because I like maples of this size, and also because a lot of my customers that we serve have tastes for maples this size. So let's look at it in detail, and I will just change the view. So let's take a close look at this tree. Now, the trunk is very nice. It's got beautiful taper, and the nibari or the root base is quite nice too. I dare say if you teased away, you will find more surface roots, and all the branches are in the right place. Beautiful taper, you know, broad at the base, tapering there. Although it's been cut, you can see that there is taper going all the way to the top. This green portion is relatively young, and this has been grown by me in the last 7 years to make a new apex. I didn't like the way the tree was veering off to the left-hand side, because that was the original apex on that side. But I'm going to make it into a big triangular shape. And if you remember my famous split trunk maple, most of my maples have that sort of style. After all, every person has their own particular style of growing trees. So this resembles the split trunk in many, many respects. Now, if you look at the tree closely, look at these long shoots here. Look at that shoot. That is every bit, I would say, 60 to 70 centimeter long. All these new shoots, 70-meter long shoots, have grown since April of this year. That means May, June, July, not even 3 months, and all these long shoots have grown. If you don't control them, these shoots can become more than a meter long. As you can see, they're reaching the sky, and the tree will become completely unkempt. So even if you didn't do anything, all you really need to do is to prune the outline. So I'm now going to put the camera down and show you what I'm going to do. So the famous Peter Chan approach to styling his trees, especially maples, is to form that dome shape. I don't like to keep saying triangular shape, because I'll get people criticizing me that, oh, why are you making all the maples look like pines? They're not made to look like pines. Maples do in fact grow like this, a dome shape rather than a pine shape. So just prune these long shoots off. If you want to, you can just leave about 2 or 3 inches of the current year's growth, and it will make the tree strong. Giving it a haircut. This is what we call giving a haircut, just pruning the long shoots. I don't look at the detail at this stage. I will just prune for the overall shape, overall dome shape at this stage, and then I will go into the detail later on. So once you get this overall effect, you will get encouragement because it will begin to look like a decent bonsai. That's all there is to it. Many people don't even do this. They just leave them to grow and they wonder why they lose the shape completely. Keep the front open. I didn't say much about the front or the back of the tree. Well, this is my preferred front. This side I wouldn't use in a hurry because it leans away. Although whoever buys this tree might decide to change it, but I'm not fussed. But there are so many shoots and such a lot of healthy calcing that you can be sure that whatever you cut would heal very fast. It's amazing how some people prefer what you would consider the back to be the front. It's all a matter of choice. I never say that there is a correct front or a wrong front. If you have a different preference, that's your choice. Now, I always look for ways in which I can improve it. So these branches are springing up a little bit. So what I could do is I could do a little bit of wiring to wire them down. I don't have to, but it might be advisable to do that. And a lot of these inward growing branches, this is where I now look at the inward growing branches and take them out if I'm to thin it a bit. I'm going to do some very light wiring, nothing heavy, just very light. I won't put the wire very tight, it'll just be like an open coil to guide the branches in the right direction. If the branches are filling a space and that space is correct, I'll leave it. So just flattened it just a shade. Now I'm going to tell you how to manage this pad. This long branch and this lovely fan-shaped formation of the twigs is what we call a pad. If you can see it, that whole area is one pad. All that emanating from this branch, this single branch, this is all one pad. And because it's springing up slightly, I can do one of two things. I can get a bamboo stick. I just went out to get a bamboo stick. See, this is a bamboo stick. If we rest it on the top and secured it there, you can use the stick to press it down, or you can pull the individual branches down and wire it to the base. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So I'm going to take this little bamboo stick. These are little black bamboos that we grow, and the old stems I use for doing all sorts of gardening work. So using this bamboo stick, you see how it's pressing the whole pad down. I can tie the bamboo stick to various points of this pad. I will use tiny bits of wire to tie it. And because it's only training, it doesn't matter if it looks a bit unsightly. It doesn't matter, as long as it does the job. We always say that there are endless ways of inventing and creating new techniques, and all by trial and error. So this bamboo stick trick is an old practice that I've been using for years and years to create flat pads. Rather than wire individual little triglets, I have placed the stick right across, and I'm now going to pull that stick down. Pull the stick down, and because this tree has been wired into the pot, there are some wires in the pot, and I'm going to use that as the anchor point and guy the wire down. This is what we call guy wires. You see how the whole thing is bending downwards, and I haven't had to wire any of the individual branches. So just secure that wire. So I pull that pad down just by using a bamboo stick. So I've got a flat pad growing there. Don't let anything growing underneath remain. We take them out. So I've got this flat pad arrangement just by putting a bamboo stick across. So you can do that for all the other branches too. And there are lots of new shoots coming. I cut the thick branches off at some point because they were too thick and too long. So I cut the tree back, headed it back. I will show you the calcing that has occurred. And this is a new shoot that is growing. And this will be a nice back branch. I can just guide it in the direction I want, just by an open coil of wire. Use the right grade of wire. And I'm linking it to an adjacent branch and just making an open coil to guide it slightly away from the main branch, so it fills the space at the back. And although there's a fork at the top, it is not a defect because the overall effect is very pleasing. A purist would say, oh, you really only need one going up at the top, but because it's just going to be the crown, how does it matter? It doesn't matter one bit. If there are too many branches, I will take some of them out. Because if you don't take it out, it will get very congested, and again you may get inverse taper. I keep talking so much about inverse taper. That can be a problem with deciduous trees. Too many branches growing from one point. So this tree has had a lot of chops. I will now show you the detail of the tree. Again, you notice how little I've done to it, and yet the overall effect is very pleasing. So let's show you another angle. Let's take a close look at the tree. Now, my first impression looking at the tree is that it's leaning too much to the left, and when I come to repotting the tree, I may just tilt the tree a little bit. If I can just show you by propping it up with a piece of wood, you understand what I mean. So here we go. See, I think the tree would look better if it was propped up to lean a little more to the other side, to the right hand side. So it's only a tiny bit, but this is where the potting angle is so important. Let me see if I can prop it a little more and see what effect it has. Don't want to do too much. Now I put maybe like 5 degrees slope to it. I think that looks more stable and pleasing. So that is how the future of the tree will look like. Now let me just take a close-up of the tree. So you see how I propped the tree up? That's going to be the future potting angle of the tree, so that it's not leaning too much to the left. And I was telling you about this fork here at the top. Any other person would probably take one of them off, but because it forms a nice crown, I'm not bothered about it. I'll leave it because the overall shape is nice. You don't always have to have a single crown. And I'll show you where this tree has had some very severe cuts because I wanted to change the look of the tree. See how it's callousing here? This was only cut last year because I didn't like the branch coming out from there. So I cut it off and it's healing very well. These are the loose bits of wire I'm redirecting that branch. It's really an old tree. You can see how the bark is fissured and gnarled. And that is the formation of that pad to this side. So it's got like 2 heads. This is one sort of semi-apex and the main apex is at the top. So this is really now my back, which has many more branches to give it depth. So this is not the side I'm going to use. And the main side or the viewing side is going to be this side. So this is the tree as it will be in future. So when I put it back on the bench, I'm going to prop it like this so that it can grow in this direction. So that's another one done. So very little needs doing, but this is how we refine the maples. Constant pruning the long shoots to get shorter growth and more ramification.